everybody.
Me.
He was like, I am almost where I belong.
Oh, man, it's only Monday. I can only imagine what's going to happen at the end of the week. There's some summer fever going on.
David,
David,
Well, the summer's here, man. I mean,
sing it from the rooftop, baby.
You gotta have fever when the sun's out.
Well, a lot of people do it. Yeah, you do, don't you? Especially when you haven't seen it for a while.
Yeah.
You probably also have golf fever. Man, we got a whole bunch of golfers in the room today.
Well, I started playing golf again after 15 years a couple of weeks ago, and I'm back.
You are?
I'm back.
You're
yeah.
back. All right.
Yeah, I get my new clubs on Friday, and I'm really happy. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, let's, David Bell joins us, managing broker with RE/MAX Metro East Side, our resident RE/MAX Hall of Famer, who's earned Seattle Magazine's 5-star Best in Client Satisfaction Award every year it's been offered. And, of course, we could talk about golf and we could talk about your amazing singing voice. But I figured we'd actually talk about what you're an expert in. And, you work with a lot of buyers. And in the opening monologue, I talked about how people who are generally getting into this type of market probably have a little bit more fear of what they can afford, what they can get pre-approved for, and then are they even going to get the house that they want?
They have an awful lot of lack of knowledge. And with that comes apprehension, and with that comes fear. And yes, I do. I love working with first-time buyers, and I think they're marvelous. But we have to go through a process, and we have to sit down first, and we have to talk for about an hour about what all their expectations are, what they really want, what they have to have. I have a little bit of Mick Jagger playing in the background. You can't always get what you want, and that always comes up. And
you start singing it.
I start singing it, absolutely. And but we also then, after we talk about all that stuff, then we start talking about compromise, and what is it that they're willing to compromise, and what it is that they want. And unless money is no object, and I've had a few of those, but I don't have a lot of those clients. Unless money's no object, then they can get one of their things for this price, but maybe not two of the things that they want.
Do you think it's hard for people to come into a process knowing there's an element of compromise from day one?
I don't think I don't think most people really understand that there is compromise. And I think part of my job, or how I look at part of my job, and I literally talk to these people about it all the time, is we go out and we look at 3 or 4 houses, and when we talk about those houses, what are you willing to give up? Now, here's a house that has 75% of what you want. It's a little bit higher than what you wanted to spend, but you can go there, and it's a little bit farther out. So what are you willing to compromise? Or if we go in closer, so your commute's better, the house is going to probably be a little bit smaller, maybe not as updated. What are you willing to give up? And it's interesting that you see these lights go on, that people haven't really thought about that. Even when and seeing these things. Now, I have some clients, I have some really wonderful clients right now that they said to me, one of our friends just closed on a house, and we talked to him about what it was that they did, and he looked at me and he said, you know what? They didn't do any of the stuff that we're doing. And they didn't talk about location. They didn't talk about the style of house. They didn't talk about building quality. They didn't talk about, what's this house going to be worth in 10 years from now? Why is this house a better house than that house? So they didn't talk about any of that stuff. They only talked about, do you like the color of the rooms? Do you like the paint? Do you like, the backyard?
And I mean, essentially, and not to speak poorly, but you end up, it's almost taking a professional and making them an order taker. I just want a pretty house, and then you find a pretty house, but you're not doing any diagnostic on if it's appropriate or.
I don't know what the percentage is, but my gut feeling, and doing this for 23 or 24 years, is that a majority, over 50% of agents, don't do that. And that's one of the most important things that we do, or that I do, that I feel I do in my business, is make sure we start at a starting point and we do everything necessary to make sure that they buy the right house and they understand when they're buying it.
We're here with David Bell with RE/MAX Metro Eastside and Seattle's bestrealestate.com. So David, so people have to understand that it kind of starts with a process and understanding what's important to you. I know that Ryan and I see it in the mortgage industry. Well, we just want to know the best rate. And it's such a tough question to answer because, well, you can get the lowest rate possible if you want to pay 10 points.
Yeah.
But it's this weird, people have this thought process they go through, and it's not always the right place. But you can't blame them because a lot of times they don't know people don't know any better.
They don't know any better. And I think a lot of people have a little bit of apprehension about who they talk to. The real estate industry, the mortgage industry has a little bit of egg on its face, we could say, over the last several years with what's gone on. And again, some other clients of mine, we actually had the conversation on Sunday that they went and talked to a mortgage broker, and they sat down with the mortgage broker, and the mortgage broker explained everything, but couldn't get in and say exactly what their rate was going to be. And so she thought, well, he told me that he really that we need to find a mortgage broker that we can really trust and really feel good about. And our thoughts on that when we left were, well, we're going to trust him, and then he's going to charge us more than somebody else is going to charge. So they went and talked to somebody else, and the rate was slightly different, a 16th of a point or something different, 2 days later. And so, well, then we think we might use the other person. And I said, well, you know what? What that first mortgage broker told you was exactly right. Because interest rates change every single day. They do. Yeah, they change every single day. And depends on what kind of points you pay, what kind of loan it is, what kind of property you buy, what their underwriting procedures are. There's all these various things out there that affect how you buy it. And you do need to find somebody you can trust. And if you find somebody you can trust, and they're a good, reputable lender, and I can tell you whether or not they're a good, reputable lender, they're not going to do that to you because you can't lock in a rate until you actually have a purchase and sales agreement signed by both parties. That's when you lock in a loan rate. Really? And I did tell them that. But, there's so much information that people get that it's hard to remember.
That reminds me a little bit of, and I don't know that it happens that much anymore, but in the real estate, talk about your industry, what we've seen is, whoever just tells you the big, I think it was called the biggest liar gets the listing. I can sell your house for more than that person can. When you're not really selling the house. The house, somebody's going to come in and buy it. And so it's kind of that same thing. There are people who in the mortgage industry will say, well, here's the lowest rate I can get you, knowing there's nothing it's not even worth the paper it's written on. Well, same thing with the listing, right? Exactly. Well, we'll throw it out there and, the market will change a few things. So it's tough.
I had the same thing happen a couple of weeks ago. I had a client that I sold a condo on Queen Anne to during the, in 06. And so he paid a lot for it and it came way down and he really wants to sell it. And I told him what it was worth. And he just was like, oh my God. I said, well, but that's what it's worth. And so he said, okay, well, send me the paperwork. He's out of state. So send him the paperwork. And with the price I recommended, and he didn't respond. So I knew what was going on. So I sent him an email and said, what's going on? And he comes back and says, well, I'm just really confused because I just talked to another agent and they told me I could get $100,000 more than what you said. And I just said, all they're doing is buying your listing. And what you're doing by doing this is if your place is worth $750 or $735, which is what I told him is worth, you're going to now sell it for $7 or less if you put it up at $850. It's going to sit and sit and sit and sit and sit. It's going to get stale. Nobody's going to want to buy it because you're ridiculously overpriced. Here are the comps, and in condominiums in Seattle, there are comps for them. A lot of houses there
Next door, one floor up, one floor down.
Yeah, there are comps.
Across the street.
Yeah. Houses is a different story. So I said, they're just trying to buy your listing, and guess what he did? He listed it for $850. And I said, I just won't do it.
Yeah.
There's no point. There's no point in spending the time, money, effort to put a piece of property on the market that's not going to sell.
This comes back to, one of Heather's points earlier is just finding that right person to work with. But it's just, I think there are people who the questions that they want to ask are not always the right questions. And I think that can really hurt people in the long run because they think, well, how much can you sell my house for? How much can you sell my house for? He can sell it for more. Yeah.
Or refusing to believe what's the truth.
Well, but people do that. I mean, hey, if I told you if you wanted to sell your boat, Ben had a boat for sale. If I said, hey, I can sell your boat for $10,000 and it's worth $2,000, but
I would have said, buy it for $8 and keep the $2,000.
Yeah, and that's what smart people should do. But they don't. They want, we get greedy and we want more.
Yeah. Well, David, we do have to go to break, but you're going to stick around. We're going to join you again in about an hour.
Can we sing some more?
You can sing all you want. In fact, we'll now require it from here on out. You'll be singing your own bumper music just for fun. David, thanks so much for joining us. Stick around. We'll have you come back in just a little bit. When we come back, Ryan Leopold's going to join us. And, it rings true what David just said, that a lot of people are out and they're not always asking the right questions. Well, sometimes people also don't understand why it's difficult to get a mortgage and why it's so important that the file have every single I dotted and T crossed, as well as every single pay stub you may have ever gotten. We'll be right back after this break. That was David Bell with Seattle's Best Real Estate. You're listening to Brashenomics.